Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hello and welcome to The Bolder Woman here on Wisp Sports. This is Season 2, Episode 2, and I'm Chris Stafford.
Your mind is clearer than before. Your heart is full and wanting more. Your future's at the door. Give it all you got. No hesitating. You've been waiting all your life.
Our guest today is 86-year-old American track and field athlete Irene Obera, who specializes in sprint events, and during her extended career, she has set many world records and won numerous world championships. She is currently a member of the W70 world record-holding 4x100 meters relay team. She also holds the current American record in the W60 and W75 100 meters and W75 200 meters. Her accolades are just so many, and in July 2014 at the San Francisco Track and Field Club's Pride Track and Field meet in Hayward, California, she broke 2 world records in 80 meters hurdles and 200 meters hurdles, marking her 6th and 7th world titles just that year. A pioneer in Masters athletics, in 1996, Obera was elected into the inaugural class of the USATF Masters Hall of Fame. On a typical week, Irene will play tennis 2 or 3 times. She'll go to the gym about 4 times. She'll go to the track about 3 times. And she'll do some bowling 2 or 3 times a week. And her next big target is the 2020 World Masters Championship. So clearly, if anyone is deserving of being on the Bolder Woman podcast, it certainly is Irene. And I caught up with her at her home in Fremont, California, to hear more about her amazing career. Irene, thank you for joining me and welcome to the program. It's great to talk to you.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
Well, let's just set the scene here, Irene. You live in Fremont, California, but you're very active still at the age of 86. You've told me before about the kind of routine you have per week, from tennis to gym and track and bowling. What motivates you the most now, Irene, at this time in your life?
Well, to me, I think it's important, to be active because if you don't use it, you lose it. And I do believe in that, because that certainly happens. But I just always have enjoyed competition or being active. When I was a kid, I was always running around, moving around, doing something. I wasn't a person that was still.
So you've always been competitive, have you, then? Because I know you've did a lot of sports, right, from a very early age. So where do you think that competitive nature came from? Were there others in the family, your parents, were they competitive?
Yeah, well, right, I guess all of us, well, we always played games, like cards and stuff, and everybody loves to win. But my father always... my father, my sister, and the grandmother always believed in, if you're doing something, do it well. So my father always says, don't make excuses, make performance.
Yes, it's a good motto.
And then my saying that I got this in Chico when I was going to school, I think it was on the wall or engraved or somewhere at school. It says, a quitter never wins, and a winner never quits. And then I always added, I want to be a winner.
And you have stuck by that and had tremendous success over the years. But I want to tell a little bit more about the story behind the results, Irene. And it just set the scene for us where you grew up. You're a California girl through and through, aren't you? Talk a little bit about your childhood and what it was like growing up in the 30s.
Well, I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters, and now there's only the girls are the only ones living in the family, besides the nephews and nieces, cousins, tons of those. But anyway, we were always playing and running around, you know. When I say running around, I meant, you know, in the neighborhood down the street, because we're like one house removed from the school ground. So we'd run over there and, you know, we'd play in different sports. And I knew everybody in the neighborhood, and kids would always come over to my house because my father was an excellent chef, and he always believed in inviting everybody to come to eat. So we always had a house full all the time. So, and then we had neighbors that were very close to their, you know, like family. And, you know, they looked out for, in those days, or the way my father did, you know, like, if the neighbors saw you doing something you weren't supposed to do, you can believe they were going to report it right away, or they'd correct you. You know, and so you know, had to respect your elders. So
between your sisters and your brothers, was there a really competitive sibling rivalry in sports then? Is that probably something that you know, got you so competitive and so sports-minded, really, as a young girl?
No, well, I think my father's the one that he loves sports, because he had made the Filipino All-Stars. He was in Manila. I mean, he was in Leyte, and he was chosen to go to Manila, but his mother said it was too far away and she wouldn't let him go. And so he said that when he had kids, they were going to be able to do sports. So, which was perfect for me. But see, like my brothers, because, you know, he had bought them all kinds of boxing equipment, and they, you know, competed and all. And then he would take us, San Bernardino, you know, and L.A. was like 60 miles away, you know, it took forever. In those days, we didn't have all these neat freeways. And so we would go to athletic events, and then in town they had wrestling. You know, we'd go anything they had. We went to the roller skating, you know, when they had you know, those skating teams, you know, women and all. So
yes.
We'd see that, and we'd go to wrestling, boxing, you know, all kinds of sports things, or he would try to get my brothers involved in things. And so then my sister decided, my oldest sister, who was, to me, you know, was a great role model for me. When she went to junior college, she decided she wanted to join the tennis team because we were watching tennis all the time. In fact, she had to go see Pancho Gonzalez in Palm Springs, so we went. And when we got there, we didn't know how much anything was going to cost. And she says, "Well, I have kind of bad news." She says, "Because the tickets are $90." So that's what she had. And there was three of us. So we said, "Well, go ahead. You want to see him? Go. It's okay with us." So we were just talking, looking around, you know, at everybody. And so, you know, I said, "That's fine. Go ahead." So fine, she did go, you know, so we're happy she went. We were just happy to go for the ride, you know, and see something, you know, sightsee. So, but she was very competitive, and so was my father. And I remember my sister was competitive, more like, you know, in academic kind of things, because she was always talking about people in her class, and she was like third, she figured, and they were like, she wanted to be first. And so I remember my other sister and I were laughing. We said, you know, who cares if it's a A or A minus, you know? And she did. But I remember that when I took up, anyway, she wanted to, I forgot I was talking about, she wanted to make the team. She went out there and practiced, she would do research and she'd talk to teachers, get people to practice with her, and she learned pretty quick and she had good skill. And she would play, this good friend of hers, she'd play with a lot of the guys. And then I remember one of them told me, he says, "Oh, man, don't ever play your sister, because if she loses, she will make you stay on that court until she beats you." And so that's what, happened. But, it was always fair. We were always told, don't you ever cheat, because you don't win anything if you do. So, and then, cards, if we played cards at home or any games, well, I was always wanting to win, everything. And they all knew it. But everybody was supportive. And then I remember they had this all-city race. It was like across the football field, had everybody lined up. And then my sister was first, but we were always so little, short, than everybody else, that she ran under the tape, and they didn't count it. So she felt like she was cheated, so then we would race. And I remember one time when I was training, my little sister, who I didn't think she had any athletic skill, she, I could tell, what is Mac trying to do? She's trying to beat me, And I said, heck, she can't beat me, so she never did, but she sure did move. I said, hey, Mac, I didn't know you could run. And so she just smiled, But, so I guess we were always, competing friendly.
Yeah, so I'm curious about that period, Irene. You mentioned a lot of sports there that you were able to attend, and then when you got into college, you played a few sports, of course. But what was that era like for women and their access to sports and the equality conversation that we now have today, of course?
Oh, God, talking about a world of difference. Okay, softball was the first sport I really, got into. And I know my father, he would be working, and after work, he never missed a game. And, some of my sister or family would go, but softball, thought there was nothing better in this world but softball, and I just loved it. But I noticed, however, that the guys would always have better facilities, wherever we go, and we'd always have to be the last ones, to play after the field is halfway messed up, and, and all that. And then, like, when we go to tournaments and things, in fact, when I was first started track, I heard, I didn't know anything about all these different divisions, and didn't have masters then, and then they started it. But so I was running against people they call open, open division, any age. So I remember one time I was in the 100, and then this friend of mine was in the stand. I could tell by her voice that, who it was. She said, hey, what's that old lady doing on the track, or something like that, something like that. Wait till I finish this race. So anyway, and then we were friends, but, we were always joking, at each other and betting. The first thing that would come out of my mouth if somebody would say something, I'd say, I always wanted to bet. I bet you and they'd say you can't do this and that. But when somebody told me I couldn't do anything, it seems like it just motivated more to prove them, yes, I can, So I was always, taking people up on those. Sometimes I got disappointed, but usually rarely, But it was like...
You obviously loved a challenge then, Irene.
Oh, yeah, I always have. Yeah, that's why, I was really daring. I'd try this and that, climb up on a house, and, was nothing to be jumping off. Because I wasn't fearful I was going to get hurt, because I never figured I was going to get hurt, and it's always a shock, to me, when I get hurt, because I remember when I took up hurdling, I was 81, and I always liked hurdles, and then my coach, Roxanne Anderson, she's from Canada, she went to the hurdles, she went to the Olympics when they were in Berlin, at the time.
1936, was it, the Berlin Olympics?
Yeah, right. And I remember she was saying how disgusted she was at Hitler for not, really giving Jesse Owens, the respect he deserved and all this and that. Then speaking about track, the early part of track, they didn't have any, I wasn't aware of many track teams and, girls and running, and I went to a conference, a PE and recreation conference, and this place was packed and people were, really outside. I thought, I got to see what's going on in there, so I went and got in. And what they were showing were women running, and they were some kids like 14 or something. And then this woman that was Stella Walsh, who was really good from, I think she was from Poland, but she had made Olympic teams and stuff. So I looked, and I said, I can do that. I didn't know I was talking out loud. And then this man next to me said, "Oh, you want to run?" I said, "Yeah." So he said, "Well, I'll send you an application." I said, when's the meet? And because I'm leaving in a week to go to Stamford, Connecticut, or somewhere up there for a world softball tournament. So anyway, we exchanged information, and he said, well, you could come over and work out with my girls if you want. He was an elementary principal in De Anza, and, I was in Berkeley. I was living in Berkeley then. And so I said, okay. And he said, maybe you'd like to run a relay with him. I said, a relay? I've never run a relay. He says, all you have to do is get a stick and run like hell. I said, oh, heck, I can do that. So then I went to practice with him, and then I was the anchor on the relay. And when we got to the meet, first there was another story, because this friend of mine that I played softball with, she told me she was a champion. And I thought, she's a champion? If she's a champion, I know I can be a champion, because I could beat her running, any day. And so, anyway, I didn't realize. She said, oh, yeah. And so when I got to the meet, here she was and some of her teammates. And they were like three of them, were champions and all. And I didn't know anybody in track. And then I'm looking down and they're digging holes, because they didn't have, the men had blocks and stuff. But a lot of times they were digging holes too, for the start. And I looked, I said, oh, gosh. And I didn't know. I just watched them. I said, God, I'm standing up here like a dummy. I said, I better start digging some too. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I dug some holes. And, push off for a start. And then I discovered, it was the first time where I was, oh, my God, this is a hell of a time to try to get sick. I said, my stomach is aching. I could feel, I was sweating under my armpit. I said, what is going on? I said, I don't understand why I'm getting sick. I didn't realize I was scared as heck, And then I said, oh, man, do I have enough time? They said, yeah, you got enough time to use the restroom. So I ran in there and then came back and realized it was my nerves. And then when I got in the blocks, they're giving me the commands, I thought, oh, God, I don't want to shake everybody see me shaking. And then the gun went off. And then the next thing I knew, I had won. And I thought, oh, man, so it felt really good to win. And then my friend says, hey, I want you to meet my coach. You could join our team. I said, I don't know anything about track. She may not want me on our team. She said, oh, don't worry, I can get you on the team. I was so stupid. And so I said, well, okay. And then I met her, and she was really nice. And so she invited me to join them and told me when they practice in San Francisco. So after work 3 times a week, I'd go over, and I guess I was always recruiting because I wasn't decided, well, it's good for me. It ought to be good for some of these kids. So some of the kids, some of my students, I got one that would be good in the shot put. She was as aggressive as heck, and and I figured she could throw the shot, which she could. And then I had these twins that were well coordinated, and they could long jump, high jump, hurdle, do everything. So we all went over there, and then really had a good time, and I enjoyed them. And Roxy had a hard time trying to get a place for us to practice, because one of the places we were practicing, oh, gosh, I mean, people were doing everything. They don't look like they paid attention to rules, you know what I mean? If you're running, somebody may decide to run across the field in front of you or something, so you always had to be alert. And then some of the places, the fields were, they're just raggedy and weren't the best place. But we still use them, and then you sure can appreciate some nice facilities, because then we practiced at Stanford, on that ice track, and then I'd go to Cal, and then that was when they finally start having, the all-weather tracks, different places. So pretty soon I thought, shoot, I mean, that's really nice because it saves your muscles, it doesn't beat you up so much. I thought, heck, I'm going to start running only on these. So then I had a lot of nerve. If I saw, then I'd go to Stanford. We sneak in, climb the fence, and, go into, where they had these neat tracks.
And of course, you made pretty rapid progress, because I understand your first track meet was in 1958, and then a year later you actually made the national championship. Later you, of course, made the Olympic trials as well a couple of times as a sprinter. So was that always your preferred distance then, or had you tried out for other distances then at that time in your life?
No, I know I didn't want any long distance. The shorter the better. Because then they sort of quit having the 50 meters, it was yards, and then they changed it to meters. But I remember, because I was running at Kezar, it was my first place I remember. The first race was on a men's meet, and they just had some special events for women, like 3 of them, the 100, and a relay and hurdles. That was about it. And then pretty soon finally, in the Western Regionals, I guess, or something, it was girls and women's meet, which was nice, And then I went, but my coach, she knew everybody, and she had a lot of ins and so forth. And so I ran at the Coliseum in L.A. a number of times, and my friend and teammate, she used to be a sprinter, and then she said, I got to find another event because I was beating her. So she took up hurdling, and then I wanted to take up hurdling, and Rock said, no, you'll probably get yourself hurt. Just keep, you need to keep practicing. Running, sprinting is going to be your thing. And so, I left it at that. And I remember one time in practice I ran against Cherry, and I was leading her, and she hit me. I said, Cherry, why'd you hit me when we were running? You know what she told me? She said, you shouldn't have been that close. And then she went on. She made the Olympic team. She made in 1960, I think, was in Tokyo. That's where she went, and that's where she's going this year to take her granddaughter to show her where she ran.
Oh, that's great fun. Yes. Well, then, just to take your journey a little bit further here, you got into education, but you continued to run, and you were there at the start of the master's program and master's athletics. Talk a little bit about that, what that was like, because you had your setbacks too as well, didn't you? You had a health issue you were dealing with then in the early 70s.
Oh, that's when I decided to run, yeah. All of a sudden, out of the blue, I got this illness that they called it. It wasn't even in a lot of the medical books, my doctor said, but he had just come from overseas, and anyway, he heard about it. It was called sarcoidosis, and what happens is it attacks your body, like it decided to mess with my lungs. And then he says what it's doing is developing a plastic case around it, And he said, but don't worry. He said, something he was telling me I'd outlive it. It's not going to kill you. So, good thing I saw him. So then then he says, well, what I want you to do when you go home, just go sit in your rocking chair. I said, what? What are you talking about? He says, well, I said, I'm going to the Raiders game tonight. I have season tickets. He says, you can't go to the game? I said, what do you mean I can't go to that game? He says, because you get excited. So I'm yelling at him. I said, who's excited? Nobody getting excited. So he went on, he said, not only that, but you're not going to work either. I said, what? I said, I don't feel sick. I might, be a little tired, extra tired. He said, no, you're not going. And he was giving me all these tests, God, I was taking. And then later he told me, he says, well, don't panic, but you're going to lose your sight for about a month. I said, what? And he was right. I believed what he said, and he was right all the time. So, went along with the program, and then I did get well. And then my sisters came flying in one day. I said, what do you know that I don't know? And they looked at me and said, what? I said, you guys are here, like out of the blue. And I didn't call you or say anything. I said, you talked to my doctor or something. He said, no, we just thought we'd see how you were. So I said, why, am I dying or something? Because I was skinnier than you can believe, And I have an excellent appetite. I can eat like I was a linebacker or something, I guess. But but I had a good metabolism because I didn't put on weight, so I never had a weight problem.
So after that, then you went on to start breaking records, Irene. It was when you reached the 45 age group, I believe, that you started with your world championship wins and records, and you were running the 200 meters, 100 meters, 400 meters, a lot of different distances here. When you look back at that time in your life and the records that you've broken, because they've been endless, and I'm going to list all these and put them with the show notes on the website so people can actually go in and read them all. There are so many, but what are you most proud of?
Well, the first time I won, when I went up to Oregon, and I think it was Mount Hood, Oregon, was a track meet, and I won the quarter, 400 meters. And my teammate was really pushing me. In fact, I think she was ahead of me. I thought, dog, how this happened? And so it was really competitive in the race, which I like. When you're side by side somebody, and you're really gutting it out. And anyway, I got lucky and won that, so I was happy about that. Well, that race I will remember, but also I remember another race I'll remember because this one was in Germany, and she dove. I thought that was illegal. She went and dove across the line, and beat me because I was leading her, and I thought they cheated me out of that race, but anyway, that's how it was. So I remember one time when I met Wilma Rudolph and her coach and teammates, and they were in town for the Russian and Stanford meet. At Stanford was the Russians against the U.S. And anyway, I got to be friends with Wilma, and she was helping me. I told her she ran so pretty. I said, "You look so beautiful in that 200 meters, especially on the curve. I wish I could run like that." She said, "Well, after lunch, dinner, if you want to, I'll show you how to do it." So I said, "Okay." And I thought, God, she is really, I said, here she is, a champion, and she's going to show me. And I said, "You're going to show me how to do this, and I have to race against you." So she looked at me and smiled. She said, "Yeah, Irene, but you have to beat me." So that never happened, but I was close. But it blew my mind when she told me afterwards, but I missed making the team on my own, and I got fourth. I was leading until the tape, and all of them, they have this great lean. That's when I learned how to lean when you hit the tape. And she said, there's only one person I was worried about. When I came out, I said, "Who was that?" She said, "You almost fainted." I thought. And then my sister told me, she says, there's one thing to admire somebody, but it's another thing to be paralyzed by them. So, I'm not going to see you run again, because you gave up. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. I was trying all I could to win because my coach, she had this pearl necklace. She said, "Well, Irene, if you win it, I'm going to give you this." And I thought, oh, man, I gotta get this race. But anyway, but track has been good to me because I didn't realize I would go all over the world, and all kinds of good things have happened. Like then a friend of mine, she, I guess she wrote to Billie Jean King. Next thing I knew, she had invited me to one of her deals, that she has, and that was something else in New York. All expenses paid for a week, and we were dined by all these companies. I remember champion where they were celebrating their 25th or 50th anniversary or something, and they gave us all T-shirts, all sweatshirts and stuff. And then when we left, we had a lot of those designers and things. They had given us jewelry and all kinds of things. I had this suitcase full of gifts. I call it gifts. Jewelry, clothes, pajamas, all kinds of things. But it was just nice, to be up in New York, walk around, and meet all these athletes. She had them from all walks. She was, at that time, she was honoring, I know what, there was not 100. I know she had 100 athletes, and I was one of the 100 she had chosen as,
Well, that's fantastic. What an honor.
It was.
And at some point, then you decided, I believe, to switch from or try your hand at field. So you started throwing. What made you decide that you wanted to have a go at the shot put?
Well, what happened is, first my coach, when I turned 80, when I was, I guess I turned 81, I thought, shoot, I could do what I want to do. I just out of the blue. I said, and I'm watching it, my friends and I thought, God, how in the heck can they? I said, it's all I can do to run 3, 1, 2, and a 400 meters in the race, because you had heats, And I said, you guys are doing all these field events. They were high jumping, doing all this stuff. I said, maybe I ought to try it. And so my coach kind of put the seed in. He said, why don't you try the hurdles or something? I said, are you crazy? I said, that wood hurts when you hit it. And so he says, well, they lowered it. I said, what do you mean they lowered it? He said, yeah, and so you don't have to go, it was 3 feet or 3 something, and they cut it down to 2.7. I said, oh. So then he got a hurdle so I could see what else said. I said, oh, yeah, it is low. So I, see if I could step over it and then run over it. And then I called my friend that had made the Olympics hurdles. I said, Cherry Sherrard. Her name was Cherry Parrish. And so I said, Cherry, I think I want to try the hurdle, so come and watch me and tell me what you think, if I should go ahead and try it. So she was telling me some things to do, go over the side and all this. So I was doing it, and I said, what do you think? She said, oh, you'll be okay. So then I practiced, and then I started practicing. And I had never practiced a full flight, which was in the 80 meters. I think there's 6 or 8, I can't remember. But anyway, when they're lined up, it looks a little different. When you just have one to go over, there's no other, so you're not worried about anything. But then, so I get in this race, and first thing I did was hit a hurdle. I thought, oh, darn. And I ended up on the ground, of course. And so then I got up and, tried it again. And I said, shoot, I'm not going to hit any more of these. So then I did complete it. And then I was in the, can you believe it, at the Nationals, 3 times. Each time I hit the dadgum a hurdle. I remember I was sitting down thinking, oh, man. I said, gosh, I was planning on getting 1,000 points for this, and I said, shoot. And so I said, oh, my gosh, I better get up and finish this race. So I got up and finished the race, and before I could, feel sorry for myself or whatever, I thought, oh, God, I got to do the high jump. So, and all these were new events, for me. So anyway, I did okay. And it was my first pentathlon. And So you're running from one event to the other. But after the shot put, they gave a call for the quarter. I said, why they have the quarter going on now? So I told them I have to go run this quarter and I'll be back. So then I go and run the quarter and then I come back. And then I had got my best shot put off, which was really good. Then, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Then after that, we did the long jump, and that went okay. And then, and then the last event, which that I somehow or other had put in the back of my mind, didn't think about it, was the 800 meters. And I thought, oh my Lord, how am I going to run this? And so my coach said, just pick out somebody to race, just get right behind them and stay behind them to the last curve and then come around and, kick around them. So I tried that, and I remember I was getting tired just before on the last lap, and because you had to do 4 indoors because the track is about 160 or something like that or whatever anyway, or 200, so you have to double it. So you had to run 4 times instead of 2. And I remember this woman, she was walking. I thought, that seemed like a tempting thing to do was to walk. I said, no, you can't walk. And I said, in front of all these people. Plus, I had never walked in a race. So then I tried to save some energy so that I didn't look like I was dying when I came in. And so I tried, but this woman that was walking, she came and passed me. I said, oh, gosh. And then I couldn't challenge her because I thought if I challenge her, I may not make it to the tape. So I clogged in there and did finish, but that was something else.
I'll bet it was. And of course, happy memories. And nowadays, you're still as demanding of yourself, it seems. As I said at the start of the program, you're working out, 4 times? You do tennis now, you're playing tennis, go to the gym, track, of course, and bowling. So let's look at a typical week for you, Irene, now in terms of your activities and what your competitions are coming up.
Okay, well, right now, I ran the last, this last year was quite a few. I had 2, let's see, this was like 3 back-to-back World Games, because I went to France, Lyon, France, in 15, and 16 it was Australia, Perth, and then 17, I don't think there was any World Games then, but just regular competition, and then this year it was I went to Poland, and then for the World Games there, let's see, it was indoors, outdoors. Get things mixed up. I think it was the indoors, and then I went to Canada to Toronto, and next year I plan to retire from track, and so I can concentrate on tennis because I want to win a tennis tournament in singles. I haven't played singles, but I always wanted to play singles. When I came out to over at the rec center where they were giving lessons and things, they said, oh, no. And then all these people later, a lot of them became my friends. They said, oh, no, people won't play. You have to play doubles. I said, doubles? And but I always wanted to play singles. So they said, no, nobody plays doubles. But what they didn't add was your age to that, and so, which is not true because there are some that do, and us also. So anyway, that's my future goal. After I retire from track, I'm going to play tennis and improve my bowling. I was fortunate to be able to get a 200 game the first year, and so some of my friends, well, the only thing left is 300 game. Oh, yeah, sure. But that would sure be nice, but I'm miles away from that. And then I guess I'll take pickleball.
We've had Rita Price, who is 93 and a tennis player. She still plays singles and doubles. We've had her on this show, Irene, and she's from California, so maybe you could pair up with her and have a few games with her.
Rita Price?
Rita Price, yes.
Oh, I thought because that sounds like the name that my friend and one of my coaches, Enver Mamabashi, said, she's really good because I saw her play, because she came out to the senior games when Stanford had them, a while back. I think that was her, but I thought she was from Colorado because my friend is now moved to Grand Junction, and I thought sure that was her name.
Well,
Rita.
Yeah, well, she is still playing, and I'm sure she'd be more than happy to have a game with you. And yes, I think she plays a lot in California, I think, but she's from Colorado. You're right. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm not ready. I'm not ready to give her any competition yet because I got to develop my game. Oh, there you go. Well, Irene, it's great to talk to you and hear your story. Just finally, leave us with some thoughts about what you're most looking forward to then. Once you retire from track, you're getting into your tennis and bowling. But when you look forward at this point in your life, what do you most get excited about and what are you looking forward to?
Well, I still like, competing, and to me, this is a challenge to try to win championship in singles, and I'm trying to pick a ball, or who knows, maybe some other sports or somebody. Oh, I know somebody. I don't know if I want to do this, but some of my friends said, Irene, you should try rowing. I said, rowing? People can drown in that water. He said, no, they have machines, and it's indoors and all this, and then they said that also if you meet certain standards or whatever, they will even help pay your way to the nationals and things. And so then my ears perked. I said, oh, well, that would be nice, because I like traveling. I love traveling.
Well, lots to look forward to, Irene, and obviously it's been a tremendous journey so far, but there's still lots more to come. I want to thank you very much for taking time to come on the program and share your story with us, and the very, very best of luck with whatever you try next. Long may it continue. Okay, well, thank you so very much. Another thing I would like to win sometime is this lottery, because I love gambling. But that's another story. That's another story. Okay. All right, well, thank you very much indeed for your time, Irene. Take care. Well, you're more than welcome.
Conversations from the world of women's sports. This is Wisp Sports Radio. And you'll be able to find Irene's full biography on our website at wispsports.com. Just go to the Listen tab at the top there and drop down to The Bolder Woman. As you can tell, it truly is an amazing career with so many accomplishments. And again, we want to wish Irene the very best of luck with whatever she tackles in the future. And as always, we hope you'll follow and share on social media. Just look for Wisp Sports. And also you can reach out to us here if you have any comments or questions by emailing us directly to info@wispsports.com. We're always open to suggestions for guests and topics to cover on the Wisp Sports generally, but if you know of anyone that fits on the Bolder Woman podcast, then do let us know. Until the next time, thank you for listening and helping us to turn up the volume on women's sports.
This is your moment.